All right, so in this video, we're going to talk about powers of 10, okay? So let's just go through some of the powers of 10, and then we'll evaluate some powers of 10, we'll multiply some powers of 10, and we'll do that, okay? In the next video after this, we'll go over introduction to scientific notation, okay? So first thing, let's look at the powers of 10, okay? As the exponents grow, or the exponents here in this first table are going to grow by 1 as we go from one column to the next, okay? So we just learned anything to the 0 power is 1, okay? 10 to the first power is 10. 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100, and so on, okay? So one of the things we need to understand here that as we multiply by an additional factor of 10, the exponent increases by 1, okay? And notice that the decimal, I know there's not a decimal here, but there's an understood decimal after each number. Notice the decimal moves one place to the right, okay? So 1 becomes 10, and the decimal moves another place to the right, and so on. Also, you can notice that whatever the exponent is, it's the number of zeros after the number 1 here. So 10 to the 0, there are no zeros after the 1. 10 to the first, there is 1 0 after the 1. 10 squared, there are 2 zeros after the 1, and so on. And that'll hold forever and ever. If it was 10 to the 1,000th power, there would be 1,000 zeros after that beginning 1. Okay? When we divide by 10, or when we get rid of one of these factors of 10, notice my exponent is getting smaller. Okay, we're dividing by 10 each time, which means the exponents are getting smaller by 1. Okay, so we go from 0 to -1 to -2 to -3, and so on. Well, as we do that, the exponents get smaller by 1. The decimal moves one place to the left. Okay, so what was 1 when we divide by 10 becomes 0.1. The decimal moved from to the right of the 1 just to the left of the 1 for this, okay? We divide by 10 again. My exponent gets smaller by 1. My decimal moves an additional place to the left, and so on down the way with the column, okay? Notice here the amount of numbers after the decimal, okay? We're just dealing with powers of 10, remember. The negative exponent is the number of values after the decimal, okay? So the exponent here was 1. There's 1 value after the decimal. The exponent here was 2. There's 2 values after the decimal, and so on down the line, okay? So just a little trick to kind of remember how many places we're going to have, okay? So let's go through some example problems and understand kind of what we're being asked to do. We want to evaluate each power of 10. And again, you can use a calculator for this, but I don't want you to have to need or use a calculator in order to evaluate powers of 10. You should be able to just move the decimal the correct number of times, either to the left or to the right. You can check your work with a calculator, that's fine, but hopefully you can use, just the rules here to deal with powers of 10, okay? So 10 to the 6th power, we're going to keep going with this first table here. We're going to have 6 zeros after the 1, so we should have 1 million there. Okay, notice 6 zeros after the 1 matches the exponent here. It's positive. Okay, negative exponent, so it's like I'm dividing that number of times. So I'm going to move my decimal 7 times to the left. So what was 1 becomes 0.000000001. So notice again, there are 7 places here after the decimal, which matches my negative exponent. Okay, we're going to do a lot of problems with this, so if the video here isn't clear, we'll do enough problems and talk about this in class to get you more comfortable with this, okay? So going the other direction, okay, we've got a number here that just has the 1, okay? Notice we're just dealing with the 1 here, and we want to evaluate or rewrite this number as a power, okay, or with an exponent, all right? So this number is 100 million. Notice the number of zeros here. I've got 8 zeros after the 1. So it's going to be a positive exponent. There's 8 zeros after the 1, so I would rewrite that as 10 to the 8th power, okay? Pause here, try to do number 4 on your own. First thing, I know it's going to be a negative exponent. It's kind of like number 2 here, okay? But what's the negative exponent going to be? How many values do I have after the decimal, okay? So pause, do the work, come back and check. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 values here after the decimal, so my exponent's going to be -9. So I would rewrite that as 10 to the -9 power. Okay. One last thing here, multiplying by powers of 10. All right, and we're going to use this concept here as we get into scientific notation, which you can see down here at the bottom of the screen is what comes next, okay? As we multiply by a power of 10, we're going to use those rules we just talked about with the decimals, and we're going to move this decimal either to the left or to the right based on whether or not the exponent is positive or negative, okay? So remember, when the exponent's positive, I'm going to move this decimal to the right, okay? And I have to move it this number of times, 4 times. So what was 712.9, I'm going to move the decimal 4 times to the right. So I'm going to have to add 3 zeros there. So that's going to be 7,129,000. Okay? Last one, I'm using the same number here. Notice we've got a negative exponent here with the 10, so I'm going to move my decimal here to the left 3 times. So move it once, move it twice, move it a third time. It goes right in front of that 7. So 712.9 times 10 to the -3 is 0.7129, okay? That's a real quick introduction on powers of 10 and how we use it, okay? And then we're going to apply this when we go over scientific notation next.